isn't meant to go and discourage any soldiers or to say that they aren't going to perform well, but combat is formative. It is not the measure of honor that you have. It's not the measure of how proficient you are, but it absolutely is a lesson. I'll be the first one to say that I was scared to go to combat. I was freaked out. In the Marine Corps, we have an acronym for the combat mindset, which is called CAR. Confidence, aggressiveness, relaxed. The first letter there, meaning confidence, is also one of the most important. Can you be confident going into the ring for the first time? Are you confident going into a test at university that you studied months for, or public speaking, a presentation you prepared for months? It's a lot easier to swallow the fact that you're gonna be standing up on stage a week before. But then when you get there, you have no idea how you're gonna react. You could suddenly learn that you have stage fright. You're scared to go and talk in front of people. You'll learn that time pressure makes you zone out on the test. Or you'll learn your hands get too shaky to throw jabs where you want them. There's something about the fear of the unknown that's very human. It's just part of basic human instincts that you simply cannot master or be confident with until you've done it. One thing that you can't get from training is the nerves. You can train for stressful training. You can have overhead fire, but you'll never have directed fire at you. An artillery sim is not the same thing. Blank fire, not the same thing. You're a human. You can process what's a danger and what's not. And even before ranges that could be dangerous, you know everything to expect. You know that there are going to be 120 millimeter mortars. They're going to be firing at this trench 200 meters away. And if you're just a simple rifleman, a lance corporal, you trust your commanders with that knowledge. You're going to go down to your baseline knowledge, your baseline proficiency, and how much you trained a certain drill. That is how you're going to perform on the battlefield. You're going to shoot down that door in a bombardment and you're going to run straight in with not a 4-man stack behind you. You're only going to do what you and your team trained for beforehand. Did I ever train to go and shoot open a lock with a rifle? Well, I was trained the opposite. I was told that's not going to work, but you become creative as well, and you don't know how your nerves are going to react to it. It teaches you, or rather pushes you, past the mental barriers. Your family back home, your girlfriend, your hobbies, and everything that you love, you could very possibly never experience again. I've found for myself, and I know for others around me that I served with, that perseverance and endurance come from experience. We all know that suffering produces perseverance, character, and then character hope. And you can only have that hope in you that you are gonna make it out of that battlefield with the suffering at the start. We all know that no plan goes according to plan, but to be resilient in setbacks, in split-second scenarios,
it's done.
where a drone is coming at you and artillery is bombarding you right now, that's something that's hard to train. You can absolutely train under stressful conditions. In the Marine Corps, we sometimes even said training comes number 1, safety is number 2, but there's something different when it comes to actually receiving enemy fire. You hear that whistle. It's not the same as artillery sim. It's distinct. And you hear the boom. You feel the boom. I think we all know that training can never be the same as combat. Training to exceed your bodily and mental limits is great, but there is a unique fear that comes from combat. And that's something that all of us need to humble ourselves with. I've never been in a firefight. I've never been. And I'll never say that I know exactly what to do in those scenarios. Doesn't mean that I can't train for it. Doesn't mean that I can't be better at it if I do certain things. Of course not. But it's not the same as combat. It is not the same. Learning the threats of yesterday. When you get training, it's often old news. Today, warfare is still in the growing phase of this new low-altitude unmanned drone boom. And that means every couple months, there's a massive change in protocol, methods of use of these drones, and engineering of them, which will throw everybody off when they first encounter it. But much more so if you come in with a preconceived notion that you are completely prepared. This is almost identical to the one that I made in Ukraine. I built it here as well. It's a bomber type, but it's controlled by radio frequency. The first people to receive fiber optic drones in their positions, they were surprised. The jammers didn't work, the logistics were cut off. They had to suddenly make new routes to get into Kursk so they could maintain the defensive lines. So even the experienced veterans had a hard time grasping how to deal with the situation.
In here, brother.
Pattern recognition. That's something you're gonna get intel from the recon assets that you have and the satellite imagery, but to really know the on-the-ground situation takes time. In Iraq, it was busy streets that are empty the next day. But in other wars, it means something completely different. It's knowing when a tank comes out every week to lob some rounds at your trench. It's to know the monthly occurrences of sabotage teams setting up ambushes in your rear. It's knowing all the sounds and scenes that are normal, and when you haven't been exposed to it, can completely catch you off guard. These are the reasons that when you're in combat, you seek the combat veteran for advice. You seek him for confidence, because how he reacts, that's how you're gonna react. Equipment, specifically with drones. When I was engineering them and flying them in the rear, everything worked perfectly. We had like 5 different iterations that we tried. We could go 10 kilometers, 20 kilometers, not an issue at all. The munitions that we had, the drones, the equipment, it was perfect. But it wasn't until we got to the front line when we realized that interference between our own friendly Mavic and FPV teams was too much. So much so that none of our stuff worked. We couldn't even fly 300 meters away from our bunker. It wasn't something we could have trained for. It wasn't something we could have dodged. It literally required going to the front line to know what to make to actually bomb a target. It was risky for our pilots who had to go out there and test this new equipment. It was very, very intense. It was intense for us, the engineers, hoping that everything's going well. Think about how many weapons are being tested in Ukraine from allies such as the USA. Drones and other missile technology. We test them to get them combat qualified. They are combat experienced and we know that they can operate in these conditions. I'm not talking about the silly things that people say combat tested. I'm not talking about waterproofing. I'm talking about the real military equipment. You have no idea how it's going to work in the front line. Do you think any Ukrainians are using drone jammers on the front line now? No. That was like maybe the first couple months of the war. There's a lot of things that make sense in the rear but don't make sense in combat. Decision speed under pressure. Experience trains the brain to choose in milliseconds when everything is chaotic. That's something you can absolutely train for, but you'll definitely get when you're in combat. Sense of terrain and routes. Before going into combat, you're gonna be given all the latest drone footage. You're gonna be given maps, where to go, where friendly positions are. Everything's different on the front line. Positions are not where you think they are. There are secret, hidden positions. One of our teams actually had a friendly fire engagement with one of those back at the start of the war, to no fault of anybody. It was just a secret position. And there's routes that only a day prior were mined, and only the guys on the front line know that. They might not even know that, but that's the route that you planned all the mission around. This happened to me when we were gonna be patrolling into a forest. As point man, first 5 minutes into the patrol, artillery hits us. And then we had to get back. And that plan that our commander stayed up till 4 a.m. that night to plan out and figure out how we're going to conduct this mission, where to go, we had to remake it within 3 hours and then take a completely different route. That was a lot longer. It was, yeah, we were heat casing. We didn't even bring enough water for it. It's things like that, exposure to the front line you're going to be working at, that's very important, that you just can't get without boots on the ground, your own boots. Real world judgment, knowing which SOPs to bend or ignore because you've seen the consequences. You're going to be taught so many different things in training. You're gonna be taught to freeze. All right, how many times have I seen Russians freeze? Because that's what they're taught. That's when a drone finds you, when you hear a drone, freeze. Well, it's not good in certain circumstances. It definitely isn't. You guys know that from my latest video. So you need to know which ones to bend and when is not a good time to do what you're taught. You have to think outside the box, be creative, use your human mind. And fight forward. Adaptability. Combat veterans improvise under unexpected constraints. Experience makes improvisation faster and safer. A lot of the ranges that we would go to in the Marine Corps or even afterwards in Syria and Iraq were pre-made, pre-planned. You know what to do, you know what's being scored, and you just got to go through the rigors of it. The CFT, the PFT, everything's coordinated. And there's no improvisation with it. When artillery comes, it could damage your Starlink. It could damage a generator cable. And that improvisation you might not think about when you're in the rear, but it becomes very real when you're there. And how fast can you get that Starlink back? How fast can you get that generator back? Will decide if your mission is successful or not, or if the Russians break through. And it's not like you can know everything. Not everybody is a generator repairman. Not everybody's an electrician. But to know what is most likely to get damaged and what you can do about it is something that's very important. I had that a lot with the antenna that we were using for the Mavic drones that we were flying. I would go out there at nighttime, not really knowing what I'm looking for, not really knowing why the drone isn't getting the feed, and I'd be standing out there under a bombardment trying to figure it out. But then my commander, my team leader, who's very combat experienced, would come up and he would help me figure out, hey, this is what's going on, and he would teach me, and then that way I'm better experienced.
Yeah, that's the mouth. Good to go. 3 with a blinking 4.
And that's just something that you can't really train for. You're not going to get your cables cut when you're in training, not usually. You're dealing with the most ideal conditions in a lot of scenarios. Just something to realize. Leadership credibility. Troops trust leaders who have been there, and that trust multiplies combat effectiveness. Your leaders in the military have so much control over you. Everybody knows that. They have so much control over the mission, over yourselves individually. It's a very top-down structure for a reason. But those leaders also need the combat experience to be the best leader they can be. That's going to take some time, and that's going to take a little bit of trust being lost because they don't always know the right decision to do, even in training scenarios. They don't know. I've had that happen to myself when I was a team leader in Iraq. We were up there were some bombings of the positions around us, and I had to make a quick call. Do I send my buddy out to go and get a radio call of what the situation is and what's going on, or do I keep him inside the safety of our main room inside our tunnel base? And I decided I wanted to figure out what's going on the radio, so I had to put him in harm's way, and then he had to come back. That was probably not the best decision at that point, but it was something I had to choose as a leader, and I had to go and swallow that pill when it came time for the after action report. So that's, it's a learning lesson. You can make mistakes even when you're a very experienced combat veteran, but yeah, it'll sting. And the troops under you can definitely lose a little bit of trust if you don't have that experience. And that goes on to interpersonal trust and cohesion. Combat is going to forge non-verbal trust. You can absolutely get that during training, but as you're probably realizing now, combat is not the same as training. There are some mental barriers that everybody's gonna have to go through, and you don't know who's gonna be the one that's gonna fall. It's gonna need a little bit more motivation, a little bit more push into doing their job on the front line. You just can't know what's in everybody's head, not until you get there. So that's something that you're gonna realize is who's cut out for the job. For myself, the reason I got into FPV engineering was because I knew in that point in my life that I wasn't really mentally prepared to be in the front line. I had some other things I wanted to do, and I knew that I could be a better asset in other ways. So I took it upon myself, after the experiences that I had, to put myself in an engineering role where it'd be a little bit less dangerous and I'd be able to focus on the job. And that is a pill to swallow, but you know, I'm a very public dude. I don't need to hide anything. I'm not scared to go and talk about my failures and the times that I didn't have the courage. Resource management, managing ammo, batteries, time, and manpower intelligently comes from doing it under pressure. You don't want to waste all your ammunition shooting down one drone. Are you using rifle? Are you using shotgun? If you think you're going for a 5-day rotation, are you basing your battery usage on that 5 days? That's definitely gonna happen, right? It could very well be a month long where you're stuck out there and you can't get resupply and you can't get back. Are you rationing those things appropriately based on your experiences in the past? Well, that's something, at least for myself, that combat experience really opened my eyes to. The after-action learning loop. Their purpose is to extract lessons learned from skirmishes and operations fast and change tactics and habits. That's something you can get during training. You can figure out what went right and what went wrong. But there's also the real combat aspect to it that you obviously don't get just from training. The last one I want to mention is the training multiplier. I found the most useful I've ever been in a war, in any conflict that I've been, has been training. Not because I'm massively experienced, but just because I have a little bit of it. I have a little bit of it, lessons learned, that's invaluable. I can give all my after-action reports to the people that I train. It's helped me at TDI, it's helped me in Iraq, Syria, and it's helped me elsewhere in the world. Everybody has a unique experience and a perspective on what they went through, and you're able to go and spread that knowledge. But if you're stuck in this kind of echo chamber of people that are going by the books or going by experience in a certain training scenario, you don't have the whole picture. You don't have the whole picture, and you might get a false sense of confidence. All I'm trying to say is combat is different than training. And I'm not here talking as a super qualified combat veteran. I haven't done a lot that a lot of other people have. But all I'm saying is that through the little experiences that I do have in combat, this is what I've learned, this is what I've seen in myself and also others. And I just want to spread it on to you guys. If you've been in combat, if you haven't, it doesn't matter to me. The best soldiers I've ever known have never been in combat. And I know that they would perform excellent just based on who they are as a person. But if you're a soldier, just think about this. These are things that you need to be mindful of when you're going into combat. Know what to expect. And that's what I'm bringing you here today. So I hope you guys learned something, some lessons learned. That's pretty much that. So I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Thanks so much for listening. Peace.